Hi everyone, Janie here. Welcome back to my garden. It is a crisp, cool morning this morning, but the fabulous thing is that it is not raining. It has been raining pretty much nonstop for the past month, so it's really nice to get a break. We have blue skies today, and it is so nice, but of course, without the rain, it's just a little bit colder. So I came into my greenhouse this morning and I actually turned on my greenhouse heater for the first time, and I think I'm going to leave it on every night for the next week or so and see how the temperature does in here. I do have a greenhouse thermometer that can hook up to my phone, so I'm going to leave that in here. I got to go get batteries for that first. But I thought the first thing that I would do today is I would set up my Oyas pots for my tomato seedlings that I'm trying to grow in my greenhouse this winter. So right here, these pots are what are called Oyas, and they are basically just clay, porous clay pots that you are going to bury into the ground next to your plants, and it's going to allow for subsurface irrigation. Now, this is a technique, it's like an ancient technique that has been used for thousands and thousands of years, and I have never tried it. And so it's been on my list of gardening fun things to try and see how they do, because these are supposed to be really good. One, for people who have really arid climates like I do here. We only get rain during the winter. During the summer, there's absolutely no rain. And it's also really good for lazy gardeners, which I will admit I am a lazy gardener. And the reason why is because you bury this, it can cover about an area of about 3 square feet. And it can, so basically 1.5 to 2 feet away from it, it will water the plants. And you fill up the container. This is just a terracotta container. You fill it up with water, and then the water is going to seep out into the root system, and that's what's going to water your plants. And so all you have to do is come in every couple of days and fill up the Oyas, and then that's it. You're done with your watering, which I think is really, really cool. So I am trying it in the container that I have right here. This container is from Edgerite. It's a metal container. It's really pretty. And I already have my Thunbergia over there. It's so beautiful. I do have a bloom on it. And then I have these tomato seedlings that I sowed a couple weeks ago, and they are definitely ready to get planted out. And instead of coming out here every day or two during the winter and watering them, I'm going to try using these Oyas pots and see if I can bury them next to the tomato plants and my Thunbergia and see if that will keep them watered. The other cool thing about the Oyas is that they do not overwater your plants, which I think is really important for when you're in a greenhouse, because if you overwater plants in a greenhouse, you can get bugs, fungus gnats mainly. And so I'm interested to see how this is going to do, at least in this situation. Now, I bought these off of Amazon just because they were cheap and they were cool looking. I liked how they look, but you can get them pretty much anywhere. You can get them from any garden center pretty much, but you also can make your own Oyas with unglazed terracotta pots. If you plug up the hole at the bottom, you can dig or sink your terracotta pots into the ground, have a lid over it, and then that supposedly works really well as an Oyas pot as well. So I will link the ones that I got in the description down below, but just know you can use whatever terracotta pot you already have in your backyard if you have something to plug up the hole in the bottom of the pot. So the reason why I am soaking my Oyas pots in a bucket of water is because they're new and they're bone dry. And so what I'm doing right now is I'm just ensuring that the clay soaks up the moisture evenly before I bury them into my container. And so then that way, as I'm pouring water in them, throughout the next couple weeks and filling them up, they're going to evenly disperse the water in my container as opposed to just maybe at the bottom or something like that. And I can see that there's even bubbles coming out of the sides of it, which means that the air that's trapped into these pots is getting released and filled up with water, which is exactly what I want. So I'm going to let these pots sit and soak for another couple minutes, and while I'm waiting for them to soak, I am going to water and I'm going to fertilize all the other plants that I have in my greenhouse. Whew. Now, normally I wouldn't fertilize my houseplants during the winter. They are dormant during the winter, so they don't need a lot of fertilizer. But I have not fertilized these houseplants in a very long time. So they definitely need it, which is why I'm giving them just a little bit of a snack in the middle of winter right now. This stuff smells so bad. So first of all, I'm going to say it absolutely stinks in here. The fertilizer is definitely potent, but I do think that the stinkier the fertilizer, probably the better it is for your plants. Now, I do want to remind you all that you don't need to fertilize your houseplants during the winter. Houseplants are usually in their dormant season during the winter time. That means that they're not growing. That means they don't need the fertilizer to take up and to grow. And you actually don't want to fertilize them too much because it can accumulate salts into the soil because the plants aren't using the fertilizer that you're giving them. Again, I just did it because I've been kind of torturing these plants and I haven't fertilized them in a long time, which I should have fertilized them about a month or two ago. What I have right here is I have two different types of tomato seedlings. And the reason why I'm growing tomatoes in my greenhouse in the dead of winter is because tomatoes are a good example of day neutral plants. And when I say day neutral, I'm talking about photoperiodism. And what photoperiodism is the amount of light a plant needs during the day to signal it that it's time to fruit or it's time to flower. And there's three different types of photoperiodism. There's day neutral, like tomatoes, or zonal geraniums is another good example of day neutral plants. Long day plants are plants that are going to bloom in your summer season. And so a good example of that is like coneflower. Another type of photoperiodism is short day plants. And those are like poinsettias or Christmas cactus or mums. And if you think about it, a poinsettia is not going to bloom until our winter season around Christmas. And that is because when we have the shortest days. So it's a really interesting concept, and it's a way that if you understand it, you can kind of understand why certain plants bloom at certain times of the year. Mums are known as fall plants because our days start getting shorter. Christmas cactus are known as winter plants because they're very, very short. Coneflowers are known for long summer plants, and so on and so on. So because these are day neutral, I felt comfortable trying tomatoes in my greenhouse even when I don't have very much sun during the day. As long as they get enough sun, they're going to be okay and they're going to grow. Enough sun and enough heat, which is why they're in the greenhouse and I have a greenhouse heater. So I have two different varieties. The ones in the blue cell trays are called moneymakers. They're big, juicy red tomatoes. And then these right here in the pink ones, these are called Sun Gold. And Sun Gold is usually my favorite variety to grow here in Northern California, Zone 9B, because it can handle our heat and it fruits all season long. But that is growing outside in our heat. So I'm really interested to see how these do with a little bit colder weather and inside the greenhouse with less light. So we'll see. So I sowed 6 of them just to, be safe and pick the best ones. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick the ones that I think look the best. And then I'll get them planted. So I'm going to start off with burying my first Olla right next to my Thunbergia Rose Sensation. Thunbergia is another example of a day neutral plant, and I can tell because this plant is already blooming for me. So what I'm doing is I am just digging a hole where I'm going to sink the Olla down into, just like that. And then you can see there's all these roots here from the Thunbergia, and these roots are going to attach onto the clay of this pot, and then they're going to, when they need water, they're going to come and they're going to suck up the water right here. So the cool thing is that I don't have to worry about it very much, and it's not going to overwater my plants because they're only going to suck out as much water as they actually need. So then I'll just take my top and I'll put it right on. And the purpose of having a top on your Oya is to keep the bugs out of the pot and then also to prevent the water from evaporating. Buddy, you're in the way. You're in the way. You're totally in the way. Okay, so I'm going to dig another hole right here, and in this hole is where one of my tomato seedlings are going to go. And these tomato seedlings have very baby roots. They're not very well developed as compared to a mature tomato plant. And so what I'm going to make sure that I use, since it's cold, it's the middle of winter, and the soil temperature is not very warm, I'm going to make sure that I use a starter fertilizer. And the important thing about a starter fertilizer is it has a lot of phosphorus in it. And phosphorus is a macronutrient that plants need. They need nitrogen, they need phosphorus, and they need potassium. But phosphorus is known for being very immobile in soil. So what that means is that if there's some phosphorus over here, the little baby roots of this tomato seedling are not going to be able to access the phosphorus that's a little bit away because the roots are small. They're not going to grow very fast because it's so cold, and the phosphorus is not going to move in the soil. So if I use a starter fertilizer and make sure that I'm putting that phosphorus directly on those baby roots, I know that this plant is going to grow and thrive so much better than if I didn't, because it needs that phosphorus just like it needs the nitrogen and the potassium, but I'm making sure that it has access to it right from the very beginning. Then, of course, I'm going to be taking off the lower roots of this tomato plant so that I have a well-developed root system all along the stem. Now I'm going to dig my hole for my next Oya. Oya is spelled O-L-L-A, and so I keep wanting to call it Olla, but it's not Olla, it's Oya. Okay, so now I'll get the moneymaker tomato in. And I do want to say these Oyas, they can water a square area of, I read anywhere between 2 to 4 feet. So that means on either side of this Oya, from about 2 feet away, it can water it. So I'm probably overplanting or overusing these Oyas. I'm going to use 3 in here, 1 for each plant. That's just because I have 3 and I might as well use it. But just so you guys know, you probably can use a little less. I'm also thinking that having a little bit extra is good because the temperature of the soil is so cold and these roots are going to take so long to grow that maybe having them a little bit closer might be a little bit better at this point. Okay, last one. And there we go. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give something for these tomatoes to grow up. So I'm just using a landscape stake and some twine. And I'm going to tie the twine here. You can also loosely tie the twine onto the seedling, but I have these landscape stakes. I forgot one last thing. So I'm all done here in the greenhouse for today. I am planning on turning off the heater because I can see my vents are already starting to open. These vents are automatic and they will open once they hit a certain temperature. So obviously there's no point to heat the greenhouse if the vents are going to open. But I think I'll come out here later tonight, turn on the heater for overnight and just watch it and see how it does. So let me know if you all have used Oyas before, and if you have any tips or tricks, leave them in the comment section below so that we can all learn from it. I think it's a fun tool to have in our gardener's toolkit. Maybe there's an area that's just past your drip irrigation, or maybe you're going on a vacation and you're not going to be able to water your containers. It might be a useful thing to have in your back pocket for your garden. So anyway, I hope you all enjoyed this, and I hope you all have a chance to get in your garden today.